At the very beginning, we see a handsome man who went to his next lesson. He taught lessons at home. At one point, when he was approaching the right place, many leaves fell on him from above. He took these papers and went home to his student. When he came there, the student's mother opened the door for him. And right from the threshold, the student told him that he had lost his assignments at school. But as it turned out, those papers that fell on him were his tasks. He showed them to him and he was very frightened because of it. The teacher's name is Himchan. He has a fairly ordinary life. He went to university and spent his time studying to become a civil servant, but he could not find a job. So he became a tutor. He thought that working as a tutor, he would be able to change something, and thought that being a tutor in our time is prestigious. But now that he has already become one, he does not have any free time at all. He was in a company that gave him students, but he was very tired there because they loaded him with lessons very much. He was going about his business and suddenly decided that he wanted to buy coffee to take away his fatigue. He noticed a cafe next to him and went there. He was going to buy coffee, but suddenly the saleswoman asked him if he lives next to the coffee shop. As it turned out, in this cafe they sold coffee only for residents of the house. They cannot serve strangers. He was upset about this and was about to go to a nearby shopping center for coffee. But at the exit he was met by some girl. This girl was called Porm. It turns out they used to study in the same place. She recognized him and was glad to meet them. And she also found out that he works as a tutor. After seeing his portfolio with a bunch of books, she was going to grab a coffee. And after that, she wanted to introduce him to her friends who needed a math tutor. They went to the table where she was sitting with her friends. He stood before the men. Then they met. One of her friends was called Yumi and the other Mihai. He began to tell them about himself as a tutor. After he was told, both of her friends wanted to sign up for additional classes with him. After their conversation, she went with Himchan and then they started talking. Himchan had not changed at all since school days, so she began to consider herself old. But Himchan then told her that she's still just as cute. This embarrassed her very much, so she asked him to call her Ajima. It turned out that she was married. And then she decided to ask about his position and the relationship. He told her that he was still single. But for some reason she began to think that he was quite popular among girls. They agreed to meet a little later for a cup of coffee. And now they went about their business because Himchan was busy. He did not expect at all that he could meet him so pure, but he was glad of this because she remained as kind and tried to help him. The next day Juvie was at home and she was waiting for someone. At this time, she prepared for his arrival and cleaned the house. But her children interfered with her because they ran all over the apartment. One of her children accidentally kicked her in the leg. So she got mad at him and sent him to her room. Because of her scream, the smallest of her children woke up. It was very hard for her and she was very upset. Her husband went to work right before the wedding. In order to pay off the mortgage, he needed to work only 1 year, so that they could live a happy life again. And now, at the moment when she almost plunged into unfortunate memories, to her door knocked. It was Himchan. He came to her to give a lesson to her child. Her son, whose name was Saiva, could not calm down and she was going to calm him down herself. But Himchan asked her to leave the room and said that he would figure it out himself. She went to her youngest son and was going to feed him. Then she realized that she could trust Himchan, because now in her house it was very calm and good. Himchan went to the restroom and then he noticed Yumi, who fell asleep right after the feeding process. He immediately returned to his room, but was very surprised to see something like that. He was very happy about it, but it was very dangerous. So he returned to the Saiva to continue teaching the lesson. After a while, Yumi woke up and she realized that she had not had time to remove the food. She hoped that Himchan did not leave the room, and did not see anything, and after a couple of minutes he left the room. He began to praise the Saiva for the fact that today they worked very well with each other, and also the Saiva himself was pleased with the lesson. Yumi began to thank her teacher for the fact that because of his arrival, she was able to take a break from all this today. After all this, he left her apartment, and on the way home, he was glad that she did not find out that he saw her sleeping. Next in line was Maya's lesson. He went to her apartment, and when he came to the address, he realized that all the girls in this area are very beautiful because along the way, he met a bunch of beautiful girls. He entered her apartment and saw the camera. Then he realized that he had already seen her on social networks. She was a famous fitness blogger who married a famous football player, even after the birth of children. Her form remained impeccable and she continued to train in life. She was much more beautiful, and after a couple of minutes of waiting, she brought her son to the tutor. As soon as he noticed her son, he realized that even her child had a model appearance. This greatly surprised him. They started their lesson, and after a while he decided to ask the dot feature to watch their lesson. He decided to focus on the lesson, and after a while it also ended. Her son was a very smart and capable boy, so if he continues to study, he can achieve a lot. After her son went to play in another room, but was left alone with me, he told her that he was pleasantly surprised to know that she was a famous fitness blogger, and also complimented her by saying that she was much more beautiful in life. After all this, she thanked him for the lesson and said that she wanted him to continue teaching her son, because he was a good teacher with excellent manners. They said goodbye, and the teacher of the Kimchi left there on his own business. He sat on the sofa and began to think about him, because she had not felt the energy of a young man for a long time. The story of her acquaintance with her current husband was as follows. She met him on the street and decided to ask him for an autograph. Even at that time, she was a very beautiful girl, so she was not interested in the football player. He decided to reward her for her devotion because she was his fan since high school, and after that they went to his house where they played with each other and became much closer. Both of them were very pleased to meet. That day, the teacher of Himchan was on the playground. She decided to sit on the swing and relax there. Suddenly, he noticed two guys who were standing by the motorcycle and resting. He looked at them for a long time and thought that children today are much more different from children. Before Himchan met the gaze of that girl, and she decided to approach him, he immediately turned away because he was frightened. He hoped that she was not coming to him, but his hope was in vain. She approached him and asked this mister, "What is it?" Never seen people smoking. He told her that it was not so, but she continued to tell him, "You looked like an old man who wanted to lecture, and you can't just look at girls like that, coward." She was stopped by the guy with whom she was after. After that, they went on about their business. Himchan did not understand why she was so angry with him, but he apologized to her and remained on the swing because today his working hours ended much earlier than they should have. But after realizing what had just happened to him, he became a little scared because he hoped that there would not be such teenagers and such expensive areas. With that, the eventful day ended. The next day he went to work again, and after the next lesson he was about to leave. But suddenly a light bulb burned out in Yumi's apartment, so he decided to help them replace it. When he climbed the stairs to the chandelier, he caught Yumi's gaze and bad thoughts about it got into his head. He really wanted to play with her, and because he thought and slipped, but he managed to grab on and did not fall. Before leaving, Yumi told the teacher that she wanted to increase the number of lessons per week for her son. From that day on, the 7 had 3 lessons A week after her class, he went to me, and the lessons went on as usual. But one day he asked him to help her with the warm-up before training. After that he went home very tired, and he was at home and decided to write to her husband, a football player. But at that moment he was playing with another girl. So he decided to take a break from the game, and the next day his routine was repeated again. But now Himchan and his free time from lessons played with Seven and dined with them because Jamie cooked dinner for them all. He returned after work to his home, and then he had a feeling as if he had become her husband. But this was not so. It was already late at night in the yard. But suddenly Jamie called him before going to bed. She asked him to come to her hospital. As it turned out, the Seven became very ill due to illness and was admitted to the hospital. Adam, he was already given an antipyretic, so he will feel better. But now he will need to rest. He decided to take her home and put her son to bed. And he was about to leave, but Jamie asked him to stay and offered him a drink of juice. They sat on the couch, and then Jamie burst into tears. She began to apologize to him for disturbing him late at night. She did this because none of the others answered her phone, and she was very worried. He decided to support her and hugged her. She thanked him for everything. The teacher realized that the situation was becoming dangerous because a very beautiful girl was sitting next to him. After a couple of seconds, he realized that he could no longer restrain himself and decided to start playing with her. She did not resist. But in the depths of her soul, she thought that she can't do that. Their game started, and Himchan was relaxed, like some kind of child. He liked it very much. She was surprised by the teacher's skills in the game, but she really liked it. They kept playing, and suddenly he wanted to switch to another game.